One winter storm can expose a mistake millions of Americans make every single year. The power suddenly goes out, temperatures begin dropping fast, freezing winds start shaking the windows, and families rush outside hoping the pile of firewood sitting in the backyard will keep them warm through the night. But when they finally bring those logs inside and throw them into the fireplace, something shocking happens. The wood barely burns. Thick smoke fills the room, weak flames struggle to survive, and suddenly the one thing they trusted most during a blackout becomes almost useless. Most Americans think storing firewood is simple. Just stack it outside, throw a tarp over it, and wait for winter. But people living in the coldest parts of the country know that's exactly how you ruin an entire woodpile. So how do experienced homeowners in places like Alaska, Minnesota, Montana, and Maine keep their firewood perfectly dry all winter long, even during brutal snowstorms and freezing temperatures? And why do they never store wood the way most beginners do? Stay with me, because one small mistake hidden deep inside your woodpile could quietly destroy every single log before winter is even halfway over. The biggest mistake most people make starts at ground level. Beginners usually stack their firewood directly on the dirt because it seems easy, fast, and harmless. But during winter, the frozen ground underneath constantly traps moisture. Snow slowly melts beneath the pile. During warmer afternoons, water refreezes overnight, and the bottom logs absorb moisture for months without anyone noticing. The craziest part is that the wood often looks perfectly dry from the outside, while secretly becoming damp inside. And later in this video, I'm going to show you the exact setup experienced Americans use to stop this completely, because it's much simpler than most people think. But before we get there, there's another mistake almost everybody makes that destroys firewood even faster than snow does: wrapping the entire pile tightly in plastic. This is where thousands of homeowners accidentally ruin their own firewood every winter. At first, it sounds smart because the tarp protects the pile from rain and snow, but experienced Americans know this creates a hidden disaster inside the stack. Firewood naturally releases moisture over time, especially during temperature changes. When the entire pile gets wrapped tightly, airflow completely disappears. The stack starts sweating from the inside, humidity gets trapped between the logs, mold slowly spreads across the wood, and perfectly good firewood turns damp and soft before winter is even over. Some homeowners don't discover the damage until the middle of a blackout when they desperately need heat the most. And trust me, what happened to one family in Minnesota during a massive winter storm proves exactly why this mistake can become a serious problem. During one brutal January snowstorm in Minnesota, a family lost power for nearly 2 days. They had a huge pile of firewood outside wrapped tightly under plastic, and they believed they were fully prepared for the winter. But when the temperature inside their house dropped below freezing and they started burning the logs, the fireplace barely produced any heat. The wood hissed loudly, smoke filled the living room, and many of the logs felt damp inside even though the outside looked perfectly fine. By morning, parts of the pile were already covered in mold. That was the moment they realized something most Americans never understand until it's too late. Firewood doesn't stay dry because it's completely covered. It stays dry because airflow removes moisture before it can build up inside the stack. And what experienced homeowners do next completely changes everything. Instead of wrapping the entire pile, experienced Americans only cover the top of the stack while leaving the sides completely open. That sounds wrong to most beginners because the wood still looks exposed from the sides, but this one small detail is actually the secret that keeps firewood dry all winter long. The top cover blocks snow and rain from soaking downward, while the open sides allow wind and airflow to naturally pull trapped moisture out of the wood. Some homeowners even leave small gaps between rows because tightly packed logs trap humidity for weeks during freezing weather. Others raise the entire stack off the ground using wooden pallets, bricks, or metal rails so moisture from snow and frozen soil can never reach the bottom layer. And later in this video, I'm going to explain why one specific type of firewood burns hotter, cleaner, and longer during blackouts than almost every other type Americans use. But before that, there's another mistake most beginners never think about: fresh cut wood. A lot of people assume all firewood burns the same, but green wood can secretly contain massive amounts of water trapped deep inside the logs. Even if the outside feels dry, the inside may still hold enough moisture to completely ruin the burn. That's why experienced homeowners in cold states rely on seasoned hardwoods like oak, maple, ash, or hickory that have been drying for months or even years before winter begins. These hardwoods burn hotter, cleaner, and longer during freezing nights when reliable heat matters most. In fact, many experienced wood burners say wet wood creates more frustration during winter than almost anything else. So if you've ever struggled to start a fire during cold weather, comment below and tell me what type of firewood you use in your area. because different states across America use completely different methods to survive harsh winters. One of the smartest tricks experienced Americans use is positioning the woodpile where it can receive sunlight during the day. Even weak winter sunlight helps remove surface moisture from the logs over time. Some homeowners purposely face the stack southward because it gets the most sun exposure during colder months. Others rotate older logs toward the front so the driest wood always gets burned first during emergencies. And surprisingly, many people living in snowy states keep a small emergency supply of firewood inside their garage or basement before severe storms arrive. Because once a blizzard hits and roads become dangerous, nobody wants to walk through deep snow searching for dry wood in freezing temperatures. These small habits may seem simple, but together they make the difference between staying warm during a blackout or sitting in a freezing house with useless wet wood that refuses to burn.